we're doing. And welcome to our 3 visitors so far. But what we started at Shofar is a how to serve series, and the heart is really to equip the churches just on how to serve our communities. There are many parts of our community, and there are parts of our communities that require a bit more service than others. And I think, just in building church, we've built women's ministries and men's ministries, and we've built all these ancillary ministries. But we sometimes just need a little help, especially if we're in small congregations where we might not have foster parents, we might not have doctors, just to assist. How do we come around you as foster parents or adoptive parents or the homeless? How do we serve as the church? Because we've heard and we've seen now, especially with the pandemic, that the church has such a big role to play in serving our communities and assisting our communities. So the heart is really to have people equipped and ready to serve, because as it is Christ that says in Mark 10 that he who is first in the kingdom is the one who serves, and not the one who is master and lords it over his people. So yes, with that, that was my 2 minutes. We're going to start. We have 3 incredible foster parents here, Squirby and Juliet and Geep here, and I'm going to just give them the opportunity to introduce themselves and just share a little bit of their stories. It's incredible stories. I want to advertise them. I'm going to put their email addresses somewhere so you guys can email them if you want to help them, 1, but 2, also if you want to really hear the full story. I know the 5 minutes that they have now is not going to be sufficient, but Squirby, can we start with you? Sharing your story.
Thank you for the opportunity. My name is Kobe, like Tosca said, and I am a foster mom to an 11-year-old boy and a 6-year-old little sister. They came to live with me almost 4 years ago now. So when I grew up, my parents used to bring children home on weekends and in holidays from the orphanage. So I think it's something that I grew up with, and it's something that has always been part of my life. And then when I came to salvation, I got a lot of prophetic words about being a mother of the nations and being a mother and being a nurturer and bringing healing to younger people. And hold on 2 seconds. Ek kan nie nou met jou praat nie. Nee. Sorry. Single issues. So when I came to salvation, the Lord spoke to me a lot about it, and I got a lot of prophetic words. And then I did an internship at church in 2013, and it was during that time I woke up, because when you do internship, then it's quite an intense time, and you really seek the Lord's heart for your life and for your future. And I woke up one morning very early before my alarm went off, and I remember I sat up and I said to the Lord, how do I be a mother of nations? What do you want me to do? And I so badly want to please you, and I want to be this mother of nations, but you're not giving me a husband, so what am I supposed to do? And then I will never forget it. The Lord said to me so clearly, be the mother of the nations. And it was like a shock to me, because I knew nothing about foster care or adoption or anything. I knew nothing of that. And then I just started research, and I started reading, and I started speaking to people after about 2 months, because it was quite a scary thought. So after about 2 months, I started speaking to people, because I know with myself as well, once I become accountable, then I do something. If I keep it to myself, then I just won't do it. And then in 2016, my conversation started. Heinrich prayed for me at a at a Shofar conference a few years before that. And then I was invited in 2016 by their church, Shofar Somerset West, to become part of their Kibwe Kids project. And I decided to move here, and the church was sort of my family and my safe place and helping me through Kibwe Kids. And I was here for 6 months when the kids arrived. Since then, unfortunately, Kibwe hasn't been able to support us anymore, and we're not part of that program anymore. It's just me and the children independently now for the last 2 years. Um, yeah, but we really, it's an incredible journey. It's incredible to see the children grow. It's incredible to hear from people um, that my kids also have an impact on them. And then I always become so teary. I think any parent is always proud of their children, but when you're raising a child that would have ended up who knows where, in a gang or in prostitution or whatever, later in life, and you hear positive things about them, and you hear from a teacher, oh, hy's my hartsepunt, and oh, he's such an amazing boy, it really brings me to tears, because I know it's sometimes very hard and it feels like I sacrificed my life for these children, but it is extremely rewarding. I will never be able to fully explain how rewarding it is. That's it.
Here, Pierre.
Hey everyone, thanks for having me, Tosca. So my name is Gepe Wenzel. I'm a travel and tourism professional, and my wife Nancy and I have been fostering a 17-year-old teenager. We've known him for 2 years, and he's actually been or being fostered by us for the past year now. So the to give you a bit of background, so it was always actually quite a daunting thought. My wife had this on her heart, and I can now, looking back, only say that she had this on her heart because God placed it there. Always had a heart for adoption, had a heart for fostering. It was a very difficult thing for me. I think the cultural background I come out of, we're very structured in South Africa, and so sometimes you just don't have that in your frame of reference. So fast forward, being married to her, and then joining our church community. Kibwe Kids were one of the organizations we got to or word of, and in show for the greater church community. Fostering and adoption was at the forefront, and it was, as it should be, a normal practice of the church community. And so that really inspired us. And we have people in our church congregation in Cape Town that led the way and started fostering. And you'll hear from Juliet a bit later. And she's been a big inspiration for us um, to open our hearts and ask more questions about this. And so we did this. We always say that our teenager's mother did a fantastic thing by bringing him to our church community, and unfortunately was part of our church community for a while, but then fell back into old ways, and kind of disappeared out of his life. And we had already built a relationship with him just through church, taking him with us to my parents, so giving him a time away from difficult circumstance. And then last year he was with us, and or again for the March holiday, and then lockdown happened. And so we were in the situation, and we said, well, of course, God works in mysterious ways, and yes, he will obviously stay with us for lockdown. The more we spent time together, the more we started realizing that um, the situation is not good where he then currently was. And we just really started praying about it. I think then all of those things that was in my wife's heart, that God really changed in my heart, was just ready, came to the forefront. We prayed intensely for about a month in lockdown. A lot of the church community helped with that prayer. Juliet, some other friends and church community members. And we just got absolute confirmation that this is the right time. And when lockdown then ended, we had him go to other people that's involved in his lives just to ready everything. And then just before that, we asked him, would you like to come and stay with us? Very overwhelming. And then, yes, he said yes. And then fast forward now, it's been incredible to just be stability for him. And like Kobe said, then you go to the first school evening or meet the teachers, and they tell you such an incredible young man. And then it brings me to tears as well when they tell you can see he's a young man rooted in Christ, and then it all just the tears stream. So it's all glory to God in that, because if it was up to me and my flesh, I would never have gotten here, but God really moved and changed. And I think it was because we were in a community that we were surrounded by this, and people that were doing this and open, and just saying that God really reveals his heart in this, and that's been really true for us as well.
Thank you so much, Kepi. And Julie, at last but not least, we have a little bit of input to you now.
Thanks, Tosca. I think I must say I had the exact same word as Quibi when for many years people said mother of nations, mother to nations. So I thought I would marry an international man and have children, because I lived overseas for 14 years. So I really thought I would marry a Chinese man or Filipino, have mixed children. I'd never thought about adoption or fostering. I didn't know about foster care at all. I grew up in Port Elizabeth. I wasn't exposed to it at all. So I read a book once called The Accidental Missionary, and I think I'm an accidental foster parent, or accidental parent, I guess, because I'm like would be a single mom, and I'd always known I'd be a mom. So I said to someone once, I've never had a guarantee I'll get married, but I've definitely had a guarantee I'll be a mom. So I think that's always been on my heart and in my life, and people have called me mom on various platforms for many years. So that was a lot more natural to me to say yes to parenting. But a few years ago, a friend of mine was actually living in a complex where there was kind of a neighbor. We just heard things going on next door, and we inquired and got some help. And so through that process, we actually found out about something called safety care, safety parenting, where you can look after children while they're being placed somewhere a bit more long term. And just through inquiring about that, my friend and I went to find out, and I think just out of obedience, I guess, it was a little bit just going through the process. And my initial idea was just to do it, to be a safe place if a child is removed, and perhaps for a night or two, perhaps a week or two, nothing permanent, because I'm single. You don't just take a child permanently when you're single. It's not the right order of things. So in my head, it was just going to be something, here and there. It sounded quite easy, not knowing anything about children who come with trauma or have been traumatized. I was very naive, thankfully, because then I said yes, similar to Gepe. With my flesh, had I known, I would have run the other way. But I'm very thankful for the path that God has, I almost want to say, misled me or tricked me into, because with our flesh, we don't choose a tougher, better path. We choose the easy path usually. So I'm really thankful. And towards the end of 2017, October 2017, I had got licensed to be, I wanted to be a safety parent, as I say, just temporary care. And the social worker came to interview me, said, why don't we just get you licensed up to foster parent level, because just in case, you've got to go through the whole process again. So I thought, so again, just kind of, makes sense. I'll go with that. And as the process goes, once you are licensed, things are ready, then the social worker phones you with options at times. And she phoned about a baby, and I said, I can't see that happening. I need to sleep. And there was just various things where she phoned me and it just didn't make sense. And then she said, I've got a 21-month-old boy, lives down the road from you. What about this? And I thought, well, that age group, they sleep through the night. You can go to school. It won't disrupt my life much. I can still have a full-time job, carry on with life. And again, very naive, thankfully, because I went to visit him a couple of times and just felt, well, I'd hoped there would be an amazing, angels singing hallelujah, and he would run. He did actually run to me with open arms, but I realized he is a friendly child. He probably would have done that with anyone. But that was the sign I needed, I guess. And I really struggled with, is this the right thing? But again, as Gepe said, I had a community around me, had a prayer team of quite a lot of people. I was actually babysitting for a family that night, and their surname is Foster. So I thought, Oh, the Lord has a sense of humor with these things. So I really just chatted to a few people. My mom said, well, you've wanted to help for many years, so why don't you just do this? And thinking it was quite simple. So I said yes to my son in October 2017. And then just over a year later, about 6 months later, I had to move to a bigger place because there was 2 of us now. And I had a teen girl that I'd known for quite a few years through a friend, and I stayed quite close to the children's home where she was living. So I started having her for the weekend, and similar to Gepe, in those times where you just think things are temporary, and then suddenly she asked me if I would take her on more permanently. So I did not see that coming. And then I thought, well, if a child says, will you love me? Will you give me a safe space? I don't think you have to pray about whether to say yes. I think you have to pray about whether to say no. So doctrinally, that may not be correct, but that's how I really saw it. So this is a child saying help. And so I again got my team on board. I said, is this crazy? I've got a toddler. Do I want to do the teenager? And I was just chatting to a lot of people. There were 2 people actually said they'd prayed about it earlier in that year that I would take her, unbeknownst to me. So she had just finished. She was finishing grade 7, so end of junior school, going into high school. A massive transition. If I must be honest, a super tough journey for her and I. And going from having full control of the house and just laying all the rules and my compliance son just agreeing. It was a massive transition, but I always said, if it's for 5 years until she's 18, that's worth it, because that's the time that her life needs to be set on the right path before adulthood. So, and again, when I hear people say, when I look at pictures of what she looked like before, when I think about conversations we had initially with all the struggles, I've just seen what the Lord's done. And again, as we'll talk about later, just the community that surrounded us and just walked with us. They said, do it. The first time they said, do it. The second time, and they backed me up. So, it's been an incredible journey. So now it's 5-year-old and almost 16-year-old daughter. You're on mute, Tosca.
I realized. I just want to weep, but I must probably keep myself together for the next 30 minutes. That's all I need to do. But thank you guys so much. I'm going to pull myself together. And Juliet segued so well into that. I think just based on everyone's stories, it's so easy to hear that there are challenges. There are so many challenges, especially if you have a teenager. Why? How? You're so brave. I don't even like the teenagers in my family, and how you take on a random teenager who you're not obliged to love. Wow, Jesus, only the Lord can do that. But I just want to ask, and so I'm just going to shoot out, and you guys can, I don't know, buzz a war to see who answers first. But just around the fostering, around the process, getting there, I don't know, from statutory challenges to maybe just day-to-day challenges of, we have a child in our house who's, had X amount of years not in this house, and now all of a sudden they have to be in this house with this culture and this family. I don't know if you guys want to share just a little bit of that. And like I said, I'm going to just throw it out there. Whoever answers first is welcome to answer, because I think there's shared experiences, but I'm sure there's also very different experiences based on the variety of children you guys have all taken in.
Yeah, I think just off the bat, as you mentioned, the statutory and all of that, the legal process, I think something that's quite different to foster care and adoption versus adoption. A lot of people don't know that foster care is supposed to be a temporary solution. It's supposed to be a safe space for the kids until they can be reunified with their parents. And I must say, I didn't realize going in that there is a relationship with the biological parents in some situations. There should be in all situations for them not to be placed up for adoption, but rather foster care. So that was something that really shocked me. The social workers are also usually quite active and involved initially, which makes you feel quite safe, and you think they're there with you all the time. And you realize over time they have to do that with every new family. So they're their workload is insane, and just getting an insight into that, they really have a tough job. They see a lot of trauma themselves. So a lot of the time, the initial process is a lot of support from social workers, from just people rallying around you, and that tends to disappear quite quickly after the placement. So I think there's a lot of admin involved initially as well, getting the kids to doctors and getting seen and just listed in schools, all of that. And I do think a lot of people are there initially, and then it kind of dissipates after that. Once you've settled in as a family, it's kind of, okay, you're fine now. So that was a bit of a shock. And then still, as I say, the other thing for me was biological parents visits, which we are supposed to do. And in certain situations, it's not possible, but it brings a whole different dynamic to, you are the parent, but there's another parent as well. In my case, there's two other parents involved. So that is an interesting dynamic.
To me, assuring them of security and stability is very difficult, because, like Juliet says, foster care is only a temporary situation, but in many years, I don't know the exact amount now, but in many years, a child in foster care in South Africa has not been placed back with their biological parents. The reason being because the system is just so overwhelmed, so the parents don't get the rehabilitation and the support that they have to get in order to get their lives in order. So even though foster care is supposed to be a temporary situation, it most often works out that it's not. But you can't assure a child that they're going to stay with you forever, because you don't know what's going to happen. Anything can happen. So that makes it very difficult for me when my little girl throws her arms around my neck and say that she's even going to live with me when she's married, or like things like that. And I mean, I can't join in the excitement, because I can't promise anything. I don't know. So that's one of my great challenges. And the other thing, Juliet touched on it now as well, is I think as a single parent that really needs your community so much, it is a bit of a pity when the excitement has died down and you're not the newest kids on the block or the newest testimony on the block anymore, and the support does die down a little bit. And I mean, you can't say that, okay, now it's all done and it's finished and the kids have to go. These kids are staying with me, and I always say that to them: as long as you need me, I will be here for you. I can't tell you how long you're going to be with me. I can't tell you how long you're going to need me for, but as long as you need me, I will be here for you. But it's not always the case with the community around you, and it does make it a little bit difficult for a single parent. I guess for any parent, really.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Agree with Juliet and Kobe. I think parenting is tough. But the mind-blowing thing is, if you love a child and you trust God, then you will do whatever you need to do. And I think that means reaching out to the community within you for help. And I think, they say some people are great and some have greatness thrust upon them. So thrust fostering upon your community, because it is God's heart. And I think that when you're also vocal about that there is struggles, but that you are also really trusting God to take care of it through community as well, people, they change their perceptions. And I think as well, if the church community knows of anything, if you read a good book, if you have you think you have great parenting styles and tips, then absolutely share it. I think if you get 100 tips every Sunday from church community, if you use one that works, that's fantastic. I heard of the World Needs a Father Foundation, and I'm currently doing Dad's Talk seminar, and that has been incredible. Like, it has just opened up a community of fathers, but also really practical advice, and that came because of the community that constantly gives updates and do this, do that. The same with King Culture, with Juliet. Um, uh, there was a trauma training course when we just started as well. It's essential to know these things. It's essential to also equip yourself to be the best foundation that you can be. Kobe mentioned that you need to reaffirm that there's safety, there's stability, regardless of how you're feeling about it. And that in the church community means emotional support. And if you stand together, then it does make it easier. But it also then becomes a declaration in Christ's name that we are going to take this mandate as a church community. And then something very practical is if there's expertise in the church, like the legal process, everything is a bit daunting sometimes. We've been struggling now for um, quite a while, more than 6-7 months to get an unabridged birth certificate. We need to get an ID. I want to teach him how to drive. I want to start getting him foundationally ready to get into this world and everything at 18 that he wants to enroll in university, to get a driver's license. Everything needs an ID card. And so if there's then someone that is an expert in legal or whatever, has been through the system, has been around the block, those things are essential to actually help parents get foster kids and young adults ready for life, so that they don't have to have all of these stumbling blocks when they already come from a bit of turmoil.
Mm.
Again, my mic. And it is true, like it takes a village to raise a child. Like I think even I don't want to I want to normalize fostering. So I don't want to say in normal circumstances it would take a village anyway. But yes, if two biological parents had a child, it would still take their whole community to get this child through the 18 years with or without, without the challenges of trauma and abuse and things like that. And I think, Jeppe, just what you said of if they are expertise to share that and to be able to help that. I don't know, like if anybody wants to answer this question, but also just financially, how does like that work? Do you like, is it just, does we know that SASSA gives you a grant and stuff like that, but school and all of those other things, like, is that just the parents forking out and saying like, we now put a new child on our budget and that is just it? I don't know. I would, I was asking for a friend, but is there any, in terms of financial support? How does that look practically? Because obviously I don't know, children are expensive. Like, they're just, all kids are expensive. How does it work?
There's a foster care grant, like you said. I'm not even 100% sure how much it is. I think it's just over 1,000 rand a month. And then a primary school child gets exemption from paying school fees. So, and they've actually from 2021, from the beginning of this year, they've changed it. So from grade R is now compulsory as well. So from grade R, you can get exemption of paying school fees. And that's it really. The rest is on you.
Yeah, I must say, if you live in America, there's a lot more benefits. South Africa, we rely on a community who are very generous to assist in the costs.
Cool. I don't know if you guys want to share any final thoughts, because Jeppe did touch now but on a few practical things, but I just want to like almost speed round, ask everybody, what are the three most practical ways for the church to serve you and your family? And I'm going to start with Juliet. Just three practical ways. If one of your third practical ways has been said by somebody else, please think of something else. But I feel like if we can get 9 practical just things that someone in a church community or just in the community can do that can assist you as parents, you as building this family, what would it be, Juliet?
Okay, I'll have about 24, but I'll go to 3.
You are welcome to be all 24.
No worries. We'll put that in the link below.
You're in the link below.
I think something that stood out for me a lot more recently is that I realized that foster parents actually need support. I always used to promote the kids' needs and what they need. And then I've realized that I've burnt out a couple times and realized that we get secondary trauma. So as we're working with the kids' trauma, we get traumatized. So I think that is something I would definitely just mention to a community, that is, people are generally willing to give things to kids, but just to remember the parents, the foster parents actually need support. And I think even a note, I think all of us have said we've teared up when someone mentions that the kids are, look at them worshiping or they're doing well in school. So even a word of encouragement, a card, there doesn't have to be any money included in that. Just, flowers for the girls, possibly. Just anything like that. I find that word of encouragement is incredibly powerful for me personally. And just, I've also got the other thing that's really, really helped is that there's a couple, in a lot of my church family has really helped, especially with babysitting. I think where the kids can't just be taken by themselves. Sometimes kids are new to the family. It's not fair just to have babysitters come in. I think I did that much too early on, but actually do things with the family. Say, I want to treat you to a day out to go to, where do we have, Giraffe House or climb Table Mountain, and actually just take the responsibility off the foster parent and just say, we're going to take care of everything. We're going to pack a picnic. We're going to fetch you this time. Let's go. And that is something the kids can look forward to. It's safety because the parents are still involved. So I think that's also then a blessing for us, because we get to say, we don't have to think about a pocket. We don't have to think about the plans. They just plan it all. I've had a couple who's actually taken my daughter out. They've committed to once a month to just take her and spend time with her and sometimes help with homework and things like that. And it's just, I realized in hindsight that it's just, I can breathe a sigh and say, okay, I can have a friend over today and not ask permission, or not one day if she's got other plans, or I can actually just say, this is my day, and I can just, get refreshed in that way. I think perhaps more so as a single mom, DIY is always amazing. I've got a pile of sewing that I do not sew, that I'm like, maybe somebody loves to just sew buttons and repair things, and even woodwork. I think we all live in homes that need a little bit of TLC at times. And I think that's something where we're going to therapy appointments and doctor's appointments and biological parent visits. It's just not top of mind, and it's on that to-do list. But for someone just to go, I know with Gepe, even shared a few weeks ago at small group, he's like, I'm good with my hands. I want to do something practical. I don't want to come and be awkward and stand around and how can I help? And I think there are people who love that. So whatever your skill is, it really just shows the family that they are seen. I think that's for me the biggest thing, is for someone to say, I want to come and spend time with you and your family, and I'm going to bring a meal. I'm like, wow, I feel seen, I feel appreciated, I feel blessed in that opportunity. Well, and also just spending time with us.
Yep.
Okay. So Juliet mentioned a couple of things that I had as well, but I think to reiterate that, that it's also important for them to receive input and guidance, not just from you. So I'll give you a practical example. I have a friend that's very passionate about sports climbing. He got me into sports climbing. So he said, definitely we need to go sports climbing for a weekend. And we did that. And it does so many things. It helped with confidence. It helped with, maybe I want to become a professional climber one day. Like, it's all of these little things. Or he now knows that he does not want to do that. The young men in church that spends time with him. So take him for a hike, because this is the afternoon that me and Nance need a bit of a break. So that giving your time to the family. And then saying, okay, we're going to go for a hike, but like Juliet said, when we get back, join us, we're going to have picnic. I think that also, it practically teaches these kids social skills, which is very important, the interacting, depending on, where they come from and what type of background they're from. And then teaching them skills, I think is very, very important. Helping with homework, Juliet mentioned, and that's about it.
Yeah, I have some that no one has mentioned. I think something that's very close to my heart is the children's biological mom. I did a course, an online course during lockdown, and they had a session that they spoke to adult foster children that have now adulted out of foster care. And all of those people mentioned that either the lack of the family supporting their biological parents or the fact that they did was an incredibly big deal. Because even though they're disappointing and even though they are addicted or whatever the case may be, it is your biological parent, and it's extremely important to the children to be able to see that the community is doing something to try and help their mom. I have a very good relationship with my children's biological mom, but I don't have the capacity to disciple her and help her and just teach her how to be a mother. I try when we see each other, but it's not something I have the emotional capacity for. So I think that's something the church can definitely get involved with. Just imagine the redemption of an entire family, from the kids to the parents to everything. I mean, that is the actual change we need in our country, not just for children to be removed. And then obviously pray, not just in the beginning, but constantly. Keep us on your prayer lists. Don't take us off. And I was just thinking of something practical this afternoon, that in the beginning, I had young working small groups that used to come and visit us every now and then there will always bring groceries with or something like that. But I think if small groups can perhaps get involved and support the family, and perhaps each small group takes a month or a 2-week cycle, and during that 2-week cycle, they make themselves available for whatever it is that you need. Is it babysitting? Is it a little bit of groceries? Do you need a meal? Do you need us to take you on an outing or whatever it is? I think that's quite doable for a small group to make themselves available for 2 weeks. And I mean, that will happen once a year because there's so many small groups in our church. Just as an idea.
Thank you guys so much. I appreciate all of your suggestions, and Juliet, you can send me that list of 24. I will make sure it's published somewhere so that people can see, because I do think that like I said earlier when we were doing the briefing, we take for granted that people know people who are fostering, people who are adopting, people who are struggling. And I think even just through the pandemic, I work at a church office, and we almost realized how, not how far from the sheep you become, but how quickly like you forget the need, but also then like how beautiful the church is. We have countless stories just of, we'd be going to people's houses to go drop off food, and then when we get there, they'll tell us how, oh no, but this family has been here already, and that person has been here, and and how the church covers each other, and the church as an organism is supposed to heal itself. Like, that's the ministry of the body of Jesus Christ, and it's incredible. But we do have 5 minutes that I want to ask our 3 guests who have joined us. If anyone has a question that they haven't been answered, or just would like to share something, or the floor is open for the next 5 minutes for these things, to ask our esteemed panel or to hear their thoughts. I see William and Annelie have switched off their mic.
Yeah, can you hear us?
Yes.
Great. A question around the permanency and adoption. I mean, our foster child is 2.5 years old, and her mother hasn't been to see her in almost 18 months. And I mean, the thinking that we have is at some point we would like to explore the opportunity to adopt. And then what is your thoughts or experience of that maybe?
Can I answer?
Yes, could we also say, especially kin culture connection, makes sense.
There is, I don't really want to say this on camera now, but there is a law that says if the biological parents have not made an effort for a certain amount of time, I can't remember the exact amount of time now, then the child is also eligible for adoption. So this is something definitely, especially at such a young age, that you can discuss with your social worker. The other second prize, for example, could be permanent foster care, to speak to your social worker and see if you can get the child placed with you until the child is 18 years old. Then you don't have to continue going to court every 2 years. But yes, you definitely have a case, unless they find a legit family member for the child to go to. It's definitely an option to try and adopt the child. I just also want to say that a person should never go into foster care with the intention to adopt, because it's two very different things. It does in South Africa happen that a child can be adopted from foster care, but a person shouldn't go into it with the mindset of that. I hope I answered your question.
Thank you, Kovi. It's actually just on that point, even Deerbie, when I sent this initially to Deerbie and I asked him, does he know anybody? Deerbie Helpflash is one of our pastors in Cape Town City. I hope I got it right, Juliet and Ethiopia. They're both in that church. I initially made it for foster care parents and adoptive parents, and Deerbie nicely put me right, and I am appreciative of it, where he said, those are two very different things. He said, like, don't clump them together because they look like the same. And he, like I said, and I appreciate it because it's true, like Kobe was saying, it is two very different things, and you mustn't go into the one hoping for the other. I don't know if anybody else has questions or comments. Cool.
Suppose me as well. Question around, I know our daughter is, okay, I'll call her my daughter. Our daughter is 2.5, so it's still very young for her to really understand the whole thing about fostering and so on. And the question I have is, how do you broach the topic that they are not your biological children, especially given the fact that she doesn't actually have a connection with her own parents? So how do you actually talk about that and make it okay, if I can call it that?
Juliet, I see you nodding.
Sure. Yeah, I just think it's so tough because there isn't a connection. Our kids all have some form of connection. And I think they see their parents on different, not often, I can put it that way, different amounts. But I've always said, and I've got pictures, and again, if you don't have pictures, that's also not as helpful. But I've put up pictures in the house, and we have our mom, and this is mommy and first name, and we talk about her often, and we say you came from her tummy, she couldn't take care of you. There's quite a few trainings on that, which is really helpful to kind of choose the storyline that you use. It's got to be the truth, but age appropriate. And I don't think any of us here harp on the fact that it's not our child. I mean, I say my son and daughter, and I sometimes wonder why people look at me funny, because we don't look alike. And I don't really understand that, because I mean, our church community only knows me with these children as well, and it's just normal to me. So I think for them, as they get older, especially the teen ages where they're dealing with identity, it is a massive issue for them of where they come from and who, and especially when there's cross-racial foster care and adoption, it's obvious from the beginning, they're going to feel something's different. So it's not a surprise ever, but I think, it isn't narrative that it's got to be from the beginning. And I know a lot of people kind of take the thing where, God prepared you for us. And I don't know how comforting that is always to the children, but there's a lot of training out there to actually just be able to say, I often, we've got things from biological mom, which is very helpful, as I say, and you don't have that, where I say, who gave you this? And I just keep bringing it back to that. So he feels loved by his mom's the one. For my son, I kind of handle it like that because he's younger. But it's really tricky if you don't have any photos. I don't know, Quibby, maybe you have a suggestion.
I don't know if you know anything about life story books. It's something I've not been very diligent about, but it's something very important, especially for such a young child. You make a life story book for them. You just tell the story of their life. My name is Sarah. I'm 2 years old. This is my mommy and daddy that I live with. You always start at the present, and then you continue by sharing when I was born from this mommy's tummy, and she unfortunately couldn't take care of me. When I did life storybook training, they even say that you have to be as real as saying my mommy drank too much and wasn't able to take care of me, because the child needs to know the truth, unfortunately, but obviously say it in nicer words. So I think that is also a very good thing to do. And you can ask your social worker if she can get hold of pictures for you, even if it's just one picture. It does help. And then when you speak to them or when the conversation comes up, you always just tell them that we are the mommy and daddy that love you and that take care of you for as long as you need us. And even though you didn't come from our tummies, you came from our hearts, and we love you like you are our own. But always speak the truth. I can't say that enough. Children are way more clever than we think. We can't sugarcoat things.
William, are you good? Hanley, perfect. Okay, but I think that is time, and like I said earlier, everyone here has children. Most of the people here have children, and you probably have to get back to that. So I just want to thank everybody for partaking, and this video will go up on YouTube, so you can reference it again later, and you can also share it with people who are interested. I will talk to our esteemed panel and see how many of their details we can post anywhere. Maybe you'll get an email address. I don't know. I'm not going to make any promises, but you can definitely contact me. Yeah, I will put on the Shofar Facebook page, they will put my email address. Yes, if you want to come in contact with Kin Culture, or if you have any more questions, I know our panel, so I can mediate between the panel and you guys. But yes, thank you guys. Thank you so much, Juliet and Kirby and Geertje and everybody who came to come watch. I hope you guys have a fantastic evening further.
Thank you,
Thank you so
Tosca.
much.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you,
Bye bye.
Bye.